Pack Like a Pro contains demonstrations of various procedures and techniques that can be used to pack a variety of sport main parachute canopies. As such, it is not a complete course of instruction in packing methods for any specific canopy. Pack Like a Pro is recommended for use as a supplement to the owner's manuals for the system you are using. Some components presented in this video are aftermarket products or modifications. Changes to your parachute system should be made only by a knowledgeable certified rigger in accordance with manufacturer's recommendations. When you're skydiving hard, the last thing on your mind is packing a parachute. But when you pay for that minute of ultimate freedom, one way or another, packing is part of the price. Pack Like a Pro is a program of efficient packing skills for sport main canopies. Whether you're a novice just learning to pack or a seasoned veteran looking for new tricks, you'll find the information you need in this video. Your host is Billy Weber, owner and general manager of Billy's Parachute Service in DeLand, Florida. Billy is an experienced rigger and active skydiver. His diverse background in design, testing, and certification of parachute systems has revealed what works and what doesn't. By learning to pack like a pro, you will benefit from this knowledge. Billy inspects and packs thousands of parachutes each year, and he's developed methods for fast and reliable pack jobs. In this video, Billy demonstrates these techniques. As your skills improve, packing will become a fast, no-hassle experience. You'll appreciate the ability to make that load on a short call. From takeoff to touchdown, you'll be relaxed and comfortable, knowing your system will deliver all the reliability and performance today's equipment has to offer. Quickly collapsing your canopy after landing and keeping the line straight will help ensure your parachute is not tangled when you're ready to pack. After landing, rotate your canopy 180 degrees into the ground as you turn around in the direction of the down toggle to face your canopy. This will help keep your line straight. Since you are holding the toggles, you may find it convenient to set your brakes immediately after landing. Leave the slider down if you flat pack, or push the slider up if you pro pack. As you gather your parachute, maintain your awareness of landing traffic at all times. Coil the suspension lines as you walk toward your parachute. When you reach the bottom of the canopy, pick up the parachute by the coil lines, grab the center of the tail, and pick up your pilot chute.
If you do a neat, orderly job picking up your canopy, you'll be all set to go when you get to the packing area.
Before we start to pack, let's briefly review the configuration of a ram air parachute. Current generation main canopies will have either 7 or 9 cells. Our demonstration canopy has 7 cells. There are 8 lines left to right, 5 lines front to rear. The A lines are the shortest and attached to the bottom surface at the nose of each load-bearing rib. Looking toward the rear of the canopy, the B lines are next and often a little longer. Most canopies' A and B lines are cascaded, travel through the front 2 slider grommets, and attached to the front risers. The C lines are third from the front and are longer than the B lines. D lines are fourth from the front, and they are the longest of the suspension lines. Note that the C and D lines are cascaded, and after passing through the rear slider grommets, attached to the rear risers. The upper control lines attach at the trailing edge of the canopy. These lines cascade into a single pair of steering lines, which are then routed through the 2 rear slider grommets along with the C and D lines. The lower ends of the steering lines pass through guide rings on the rear risers and terminate in the steering toggles. Notice there is a locking loop a short distance up from the toggle, which is used to set the deployment brakes. To check for proper line continuity, ensure the outside lines from each of the connector links are routed to the stabilizers at the outside edge of the canopy. Each successive line should attach further in toward the middle, with the inside lines on the links routed to the center cell. Note that each line is routed directly from the bottom of the canopy to the riser link and is free and clear of all other lines. All of the lines should be checked in this manner. Main parachute deployment starts with the release of the pilot chute, which can be either spring-launched or hand-deployed. The spring-launched pilot chute is best for the novice jumper due to its low operator skill requirement. The standard of the industry for nearly all jumpers past the student stage is some type of hand-deploy pilot chute. As the name implies, the hand-deploy system relies on the jumper to extract the pilot chute and position it in the wind stream. On the throw-out hand deploy, the activation handle is attached to the top of the pilot chute canopy, which is packed in a small pouch. The main container is held securely closed by a pin, which is extracted by the pilot chute. The resulting stage deployment provides increased reliability. When the hand deploy is mounted on the rear of the leg strap, the pilot chute handle is easily visible while maintaining a good stable body position. The bottom of container location is a more secure system for advanced freefall flying, since there is little or no pilot chute bridle exposed to the wind. The BOC pilot chute activation handle is not directly visible to the jumper, but this position offers the most natural throw. Misrouting the pilot chute bridle of the throw-out hand deploy during packing can produce a pilot chute in tow malfunction. For this reason, if the main container is opened after packing the pilot chute, it's a good idea to remove and repack the entire pilot chute and bridle. The pull-out system is configured with the pilot chute and bridle enclosed in the main container, which is locked closed by a pin and handle assembly that is attached to the bottom of the pilot chute. The pull-out system is similar to the ripcord and spring pilot chute system, but relies on the jumper to place the pilot chute in the wind stream. If the jumper pulls the handle and is unable to activate the system, the handle will be trailing a few inches above the main container. When the parachute's maximum performance is not required, the non-collapsible pilot chute system serves quite well. As the canopy's forward speed is increased, the effect of an open pilot chute becomes more pronounced. For this reason, collapsible hand-deploy pilot chutes are preferred when higher performance is desired. The most basic method of collapsing the pilot chute is to allow the bag to slide up the bridle and over the pilot chute during main canopy deployment. Although this system is very reliable, it can cause premature pilot chute and bag wear. In fact, main canopy upper skin damage is common as a result of fabric being pinched between the stop ring and grommet. Adding a bumper stop to the ring will help alleviate this problem. In addition, if the stop ring on the inside of the bag is too small and is pulled through the large grommet during the deployment sequence, enough canopy may be pulled up into the grommet to cause top skin damage or a malfunction. A very effective method of collapsing the pilot chute is to use a retracting center line or kill line. This type of pilot chute functions normally until the main canopy is extracted from the deployment bag, at which time the kill line pulls the top of the pilot chute down and causes it to collapse. This system requires extending the kill line during the packing process to make the pilot chute functional for the next jump. With this system, you must be able to verify that the packed pilot chute has been reconfigured. To prevent a pilot chute in tow malfunction, check this before every jump. Select a clean, dry area to pack your parachute. Sunlight causes irreversible damage to nylon, so it's a good idea to pack indoors or in the shade. If you must pack in the sun, limit the exposure by keeping your system covered until you're ready to pack. Try to find a location out of the wind as much as possible, especially until you become proficient at packing. Prepare for packing by stretching your parachute system out full length with the line straight from risers to canopy. Set the rig down with the containers facing up. Each time you pack, it is important to perform a quick inspection to ensure the system is airworthy and the lines and canopy are straight. Every system has components that are subject to frequent wear. If this wear is allowed to progress until the part fails, significant problems can result. The first item we'll consider is the container closing loop. The eye of the loop should be only large enough for your finger to go through. If it's too large, part of the system may be caught in it, causing a malfunction. If the loop needs replacement, follow the manufacturer's recommendations for the construction, size, and installation. You'll find touch fastener material, known by the trade name Velcro, in a variety of places on nearly all systems in use today. The hook component of this material often attracts a variety of debris which will affect its function. A fine-tooth comb or other sharp object is an effective tool for cleaning the hooks. The pile element usually remains clean. However, the nylon fibers will eventually be pulled out of place from constant use, decreasing its effectiveness.
Touch fastener material is used in many very important places on your rig. You should replace it before it stops sticking, because if you don't, you're endangering yourself and other jumpers.
Check the riser releases according to the manufacturer's instructions. Examine the steering lines and toggles for wear. Ensure that the Velcro securely retains the toggle to the riser, since a premature deployment brake release can cause a malfunction. Because the steering lines are loose on the toggle end, as the jumper handles them, they become twisted. Removing these twists is an important procedure to prevent malfunctions. Be sure the slider is straight and examine the grommets for damage which can harm the steering lines and suspension lines. Correctly installed slider stops will avert these problems by preventing the slider grommets from contacting the connector links. Refer to the canopy manufacturer's owner's manual for this information. Consistent and reliable canopy openings are the result of a progressively staged deployment. The suspension lines must be securely retained until they are extracted during the deployment process. The locking stows are particularly important since they prevent an out-of-sequence deployment. There are several types of line stow retainer bands. Whichever type is used, it is important to inspect line stow bands during the packing process and replace any that look like they might fail on use. Examine the complete pilot chute assembly for wear. If you have a centerline collapsible pilot chute, check the kill line for wear. Check the bridle attachment inside the bag. Then reconfigure the pilot chute for proper operation by extending the centerline.
As you become more familiar with your parachute system, you'll be able to do this inspection procedure as you pack. Inspection procedures for your parachute system will be found in the manufacturer's owner's manuals.
Now turn this tape off and practice the inspection procedures in the preparation for packing section. If necessary, rewind the tape and watch this section again until you are confident in your ability to prepare for packing. Side packing is the traditional method of folding a ram air parachute. This packing method makes it relatively easy to recognize the parachute parts and determine if the canopy and lines are straight. Make sure the slider is all the way down to the slider stops at the connector links. If the slider is equipped with a stowing device, ensure it is correctly configured for packing. Set the deployment brakes by pulling the steering line down until the brake loop is on the bottom side of the guide ring. Place the stiffened portion of the toggle through the loop and insert it into the toggle keeper if you have one. Pull the steering line tight from above the ring and seat the Velcro. As you stow the excess line as recommended by the system manufacturer, avoid snagging the lines on the hook portion of the touch fastener material. Check that the risers are straight. Then grasp the front and rear riser line groups and the steering lines as shown. Walk the lines up to the canopy to check for correct continuity. At this point, it should be readily apparent whether your lines are straight. If your lines look like this, the rig probably passed through the risers at some point. To correct this, simply flip the harness container through the lines as shown. Then stretch the lines and canopy out straight again. Then recheck the line groups. The steering lines should run from the trailing edge of the canopy through the slider grommets to the toggles with no obstructions. Follow the lines attached to the stabilizers through the grommets to the connector links. They should be the outside lines. Check both left and right riser line groups. Then lay the canopy down. Take the front risers in one hand, the rear risers in the other hand, and separate them above the slider. Pick the lines up as they are separated and walk to the canopy. Shake and pull the A and B lines away from the C and D lines. Swing the canopy away from you and in the same motion lay it on the floor. You may wish to swing the canopy a couple of times to get the hang of it. The airfoil shape should be quite visible. Use the packing tabs to pull the canopy and lines tight. There are the same number of tabs as there are cells, 9 in this case. There are 9 tabs above the A and B lines, and there are 9 tabs above the C and D lines. Hold each group of tabs in each hand and flip-flop the nose and tail so you can see the airfoil shape and the lines are straight and tight. If you're packing a canopy manufactured with zero porosity fabric, this is a good time to remove the excess air. Work from the trailing edge to the nose and squeeze the air out. A little time spent here will save you a lot of aggravation later. Flake the nose by aligning the top surface high points at the leading edge until you have straightened all 9 cells. If your canopy opens comfortably, skip the next step. To slow the canopy's inflation, count off half the cells and, starting with the leading edge tapes, roll them in toward the center cell. The more you roll the nose, the slower and softer the opening. Do the same thing with the other cells, rolling the nose in toward the center by an equal amount. The front of the canopy should look like this. To fold the canopy, grasp the cells above the B lines and place them on top of the A lines. Next, place the C lines on top of the B lines and the D lines on top of the C lines. Make the last fold by placing the tail in the center of the canopy. It is important to pull the stabilizers out from between the lines. Starting at the outside steering line and working your way forward, follow the edge tape, pulling the stabilizer out from the outside steering line to the D line, then on forward to the C line, the B line, and the A line. Do this on both sides of the parachute. To prevent canopy damage on deployment, check the stabilizers to be certain none of the lines are wrapped around a slider stop. Then dress the tail by pulling the material out from between the steering lines. Keep the steering lines in the center. Straighten the slider and pull it to the stops on the stabilizers. Push the slider up from underneath to position it between the line and stabilizers. As you do so, flake the left and right sides of the slider between the front and rear slider grommets. Take the center of the tail and pull it down even with the stabilizers. Flake both halves of the tail, keeping the steering lines in the center. Center the tail over the steering lines and wrap the center cell around the canopy about the width of the deployment bag. Check to be sure all 4 grommets are up against the slider stops. Kneel on the tail and slider and eliminate trapped air by working the canopy from bottom to top. As you work the air out of the fabric, dress the canopy to the approximate width of the deployment bag. If you're packing a zero porosity canopy, go slow, since the only place for the air to leak out is through the stitch holes. When you get up, keep one knee on the canopy to hold the folds in place. The canopy stack should be the approximate depth of the deployment bag. Make the first fold with the stabilizers and slider. Use one hand on top of the tail to hold the slider in place as you make the next fold with the upper portion of the canopy. Holding a light pressure on the stack will allow you to pull your hand out without disrupting your pack job. Use your knee to hold the canopy in place as you roll the extra material on top of the canopy down under the top fold. Be sure you can see the bridle attachment and bag stop, which should be in the center of the completed stack.
Keep your slider up against the stops. Even the smallest movement down the lines will increase opening shock and decrease reliability.
Place your knee lightly on the canopy to hold it in place while you pick up the bag and slide it under the folds of the canopy on one side. Placing too much pressure on a zero porosity canopy will cause the stack to slide around and result in disarray. Pull your bridle to the bag stop and check it while you can still see inside the bag. Shift your weight as necessary and stuff the other side into the bag. To prevent deployment damage, make sure canopy fabric is not caught between the stop ring and grommet inside the bag. You are now ready to close the bag. Now turn this tape off and practice the procedures in this section. If necessary, rewind the tape and watch this section again until you are confident in your ability to side pack. PRO is an acronym for Proper Ram Air Organization. Pro packing orients the parachute in a configuration which promotes soft, on-heading openings with a minimum risk of canopy damage. Lay out the system in the canopy. If you have a collapsible pilot chute, make sure it is correctly configured for use. Check that the brakes are set. If they aren't, set them. Check that the risers are straight. Then grasp the front and rear riser line groups and the steering lines as shown. Walk the lines up to the canopy to check for correct continuity, if necessary pushing the slider ahead of you. At this point, it should be readily apparent whether your lines are straight. If you've untangled the lines or have any doubts about the lines being straight, it's a good idea to perform a continuity check. The steering line should run from the trailing edge of the canopy through the slider grommets to the toggles with no obstructions. Check that the outside lines are free and clear from the stabilizers through the slider grommets to the connector links. Check both the left and right riser line groups. If the lines are straight, you are ready to pack. At this point, the nose openings should be facing you, and the tail should be on the outside of the canopy away from you. Keeping the lines taut, hold the canopy near the line attach points at a comfortable height. Starting with the end cell nearest you, pull out the nose of each cell and lay it next to your side. It's a good idea to count each cell to make sure you don't miss any. When the nose is flaked, grasp all the nose sections in one hand and sharply pull from back to front to straighten the canopy. Take the tips of the flaked nose and hold them between your knees. If you hold too much of the nose, you will pull the A-lines out of position and distort your pack job. Leave the slider down inside the canopy to help you define the line groups during packing. Now clear the stabilizers on both sides of the canopy by pulling each panel out to the side. When you're done, check to ensure none of the lines are wrapped around a slider stop on the stabilizers. Two sets of lines run through the front slider grommets. The A lines are closest to you and a little shorter than the B lines. If you have any trouble locating the A lines, follow the outside seam tape from the nose to the A line attach point and count off the correct number of lines. Place your hand inside the canopy halfway between the A and B lines. Pull the bottom seams to the side and give them a little shake. The canopy fabric will naturally fall into an S-fold. Use your arm to smooth the fabric and eliminate trapped air. This is particularly important for zero porosity canopies. Now pull the bottom seams out from between the B and C lines. These bottom seams are easy to locate since they are between the front and rear slider grommets. Follow the stabilizer down to the corner of the trailing edge of the canopy, grab the steering lines, and pull them off to the side. Since the stabilizer is very short between the C and D line groups, and the D line attach points are a considerable distance down in the canopy, we'll make this fold in a different manner. Now that the lines are clearly visible, locate the D lines, which should go all the way through the same slider grommet. Gently pull them out to the side and make a fold. Then flake the tail material between the steering lines. Make sure these lines are kept in the center of the pack job. Initially, you may find it confusing to locate the line groups and seams because the stabilizers extend below the bottom surface of the canopy, which obscures your view. This is the same packing sequence with the lower stabilizer attach points removed. Notice the symmetry, neatness, and organization of the pack job. With the nose and tail placed between the neatly flaked right and left sides, the canopy is correctly oriented for a straight on-heading opening. In addition, the packer has convenient access to the slider and nose, which makes it easy to configure the canopy for the correct type of opening desired, either fast or slow. This is a graphic demonstration of the benefits of the Pro Pack. Now, repeat these actions on the other side. If you have a large canopy and you pack slow, you may find your arm gets tired from holding the canopy. If this is the case, pack alternating sides and switch arms between each line group. Just make sure you flake each section.
As you flake the canopy, keep the lines in the center by pulling the seams only far enough to make the folds. If you pull the seams too far, you'll distort your pack job.
As you become familiar with the ProPack and gain proficiency, you'll probably find it more convenient to flake each side in one continuous motion, as you see here. The slider should be centered in the flaked canopy. Loosen your grip on the nose and pull each of the 4 bottom slider edge tapes out in the appropriate direction. All 4 grommets should be resting against the slider stops. This is a good time to check your stabilizers to ensure they are clear of all lines. The nose treatment and slider placement can control the speed of your canopy's inflation. If your parachute opens slow and soft, leave the nose hanging out the front, or spread it out as shown. The more the nose is exposed to the airstream, the faster your canopy will inflate. To roll the nose and slow your canopy's inflation, run your hand down between the slider grommets. Exactly half the lines will be on the left and half on the right. Leaving the center cell hanging in the middle, grab the leading edge tapes of all the cells on one side and roll them in toward the center. Do the same thing on the other side, rolling the nose in an equal amount. When you're done, reach between the line groups and pull the front seam of the slider out toward you as shown. The front of the canopy should look like this. Reach down and grab the very center of the tail. You'll normally find a manufacturer's label or marking tape sewn to the center seam. Pick up the center of the tail and hold it in place with the hand gripping the lines. You may also find it convenient to hold the pilot chute and bag off the ground by picking up the bridle line. Wrap each half of the tail part way around the canopy. To keep the pack job neat, tuck the top of the stabilizers and cells in toward the back of the canopy folds. Now, take both pieces of the tail and roll them in together so they encase the rest of the canopy.
To keep your steering lines in the middle of the pack job, use as little tail as possible to wrap around the canopy. If you use too much tail to wrap around the canopy, you'll be pulling the steering lines to the front of the canopy. It should be avoided.
Place your free hand under the bundle and lay the parachute down as carefully as possible, keeping the lines taut and the slider up. Hold the tail and slider in place with your knees while you eliminate the trapped air from the canopy. As you work the air out from bottom to top, dress the canopy to the approximate width of the deployment bag. This process will take a bit longer with a zero porosity canopy since the air must leak out slowly through all the stitch holes. When you get up, keep one knee on the canopy to hold the folds in place. The canopy stack should be the approximate depth of the deployment bag. Make the first fold at the bottom with the stabilizers and slider. Hold the tail and slider in place as you make the next fold with the upper portion of the canopy. Keeping a light pressure on the stack will allow you to pull your hand out without disrupting your pack job. Use your knee to hold the canopy in place as you roll the extra material on top of the canopy down under the top fold. Be sure you can see your bridle attachment and bag stop, which should be in the center of the completed stack.
Make sure your slider stays all the way up against the stops. Even the smallest movement down the lines may increase opening shock and decrease reliability.
Hold the stack in place with your knee while you pick up the bag and slide it under the folds of the canopy on one side. Placing too much pressure on a zero porosity canopy will cause the stack to slide around and result in disarray. Pull your bridle to the bag stop and check it while you can still see inside. Shift your weight as necessary and stuff the other side into the bag. Be sure to fill the corners completely. To prevent damage during deployment, make sure canopy fabric is not caught between the stop ring and grommet inside the bag. You are now ready to close the bag.
If you want your parachute to be reliable, remember the basics. The canopy and lines are straight, the brakes are set, and the slider's up. That should do it.
Now turn this tape off and practice the procedures in this section. If necessary, rewind the tape and watch this section again until you are confident in your ability to ProPack. To close the bag, pick the flap up and bring the grommet to the rubber band. Route the stow band through the grommet and lock the bag with the line stow. The locking stows must retain the line securely to prevent a bag strip and an out-of-sequence deployment. The line stow should be neat and extend about 2 inches outside the rubber band. If you need your lines held a bit more securely, it's okay to make the stows slightly longer, just don't exceed 2.5 inches. Stow the lines to about 12 to 15 inches from the connector links, depending on the manufacturer's recommendations. Carefully pick up the bag and risers and bring them down toward the bottom of the container. Dress the risers as necessary to keep them flat over the shoulders. Check that no lines are wrapped around the connector links and position the bag in the container as recommended by the manufacturer. As you pull up on the side flaps, use your knees to squeeze the air out and work the bag into the corners of the container. Route the pilot chute bridle as required and insert a pull-up cord through the locking loop. As you close the container, use your hand to bring the flap and grommet into place. This helps to avoid undue stress on the stiffener and grommet. As you close each flap in sequence, hold the locking loop in place with your knee. Correct pilot chute bridle routing is particularly important for the proper function of hand-deploy pilot chute systems. To prevent a pilot chute in tow malfunction, follow the manufacturer's exact instructions. If you have a collapsible kill line type pilot chute, this is a good time to verify it has been reconfigured and is ready to jump. Route the pull-up cord from under the pin and slowly remove it to prevent excess friction which wears out the closing loop. Failure to remove the pull-up cord may prevent the container from opening in free fall. Verify there is enough slack in the bridle between the container and closing pin to allow the pilot chute to extract the pin during opening. Then check to make sure the bridle runs from the pin to the pilot chute without passing through the harness. For the rear of leg pilot chute, start to mate the touch fastener material at the 90-degree point to make sure the bridle is placed correctly. Unsecured bridle must be tucked under a flap as recommended by the manufacturer. A loose bridle could catch the wind in free fall and pull the closing pin, producing an out-of-sequence deployment. The hand-deploy pilot chute system is easier to pack and use if you know a few tricks. When you lay the pilot chute out, leave enough slack in the bridle to allow the folded pilot chute to be placed into the pouch. As you fold the canopy, make the length the same as the pouch and keep the bulk evenly distributed from top to bottom. This will make the pilot chute easier to insert into the pouch and to extract in free fall. It is suggested that you avoid folding the completed canopy in half from top to bottom. Doing so can cause the pilot chute to bunch up at the mouth of the spandex pouch and make the extraction difficult.
Parachute packing is not a rocket science, although doing a good neat job will help with safe deployments and safety in free fall. Blue sky, have some great jumps.